do we say to the god of death?
Not today.
What if I told you that the beloved sword master who taught Arya Stark everything she knows never actually died? And what if the proof has been hiding in plain sight since Season 1? Syrio Forel's supposed death remains one of the most debated moments in Game of Thrones history. We saw him face off against Meryn Trant with nothing but a wooden sword, heard the sounds of a struggle, and then nothing. No body. No confirmation. Just silence. George R.R. Martin himself has refused to confirm whether Syrio died, and that alone should tell you something. In interviews, when pressed about Syrio's fate, Martin has consistently dodged the question with a knowing smile. He's not the type to leave loose ends unless they matter. Here's what actually happened in that scene. Syrio stayed behind to fight 5 Lannister guards and Meryn Trant so Arya could escape. He took down 4 guards with a wooden practice sword while they had steel and armor. Think about that for a second. A wooden sword against armored knights. When his wooden blade finally shattered against Meryn Trant's armor, Syrio was left weaponless. The scene cuts away. We hear clashing sounds. Then silence. But here's the critical part that everyone overlooks. We never see a body. In a show that gleefully showed us every major death in graphic detail, from Ned Stark's beheading to the Red Wedding, why would they suddenly become shy about showing us Syrio's corpse? The answer is simple. There was no corpse to show. Now let's talk about Jaqen H'ghar.
What do you want?
A man has a thirst. A man does not
He
drink.
mysteriously appears in the black cells under the Red Keep shortly after Syrio's disappearance. The timeline matches perfectly. Euron picks up his prisoners from King's Landing right around the time Syrio vanishes. Jaqen is in a black cell, which is reserved for the most dangerous criminals. But here's the thing. Jaqen never acts like a prisoner. He's calm, collected, and speaks in riddles. When Arya asks him how he got captured, he gives a vague non-answer about being in the wrong place at the wrong time. That's not the answer of a man who was genuinely caught. That's the answer of a man who got himself caught on purpose. Think about the fighting styles. Syrio was a water dancer from Braavos, known for speed, precision, and an almost supernatural ability to read opponents. When Jaqen fights later in the series, particularly in Season 2 when he helps Arya escape Harrenhal, his movements are eerily similar. He doesn't fight like a brute. He fights like a dancer. Quick, efficient, deadly. The show doesn't explicitly highlight this because they are trying to keep the mystery alive, but if you watch closely, the parallels are undeniable. Both men move with that same Braavosi grace. Both kill with minimal effort and maximum efficiency. But the real smoking gun is something Syrio said to Arya during their very first lesson. What do we say to the god of death? And Arya responds, not today. At the time, this seemed like a motivational lesson about bravery and survival. But knowing what we know about the Faceless men, this line takes on an entirely different meaning. The Faceless men are literally servants of the men-effaced god, which is the god of death. They don't say not today to death. They are the instruments of death. They bring death to those whose names are spoken. Syrio wasn't teaching Arya a random philosophy. He was planting the seeds of Faceless men ideology in her mind from day one. He was preparing her, testing her, seeing if she had what it takes to eventually become no one. This wasn't just a sword master doing his job. This was a faceless man on a mission. In the books, George R.R. Martin drops even more hints. Syrio tells Arya that he was once the First Sword of Braavos, the greatest position a swordsman can achieve in that city. But he gave it up. Why would someone give up the most prestigious sword-fighting position in the world? The official story is that he came to King's Landing to teach, but that doesn't add up. First swords don't just walk away from their position to become tutors for noble children. Unless walking away was part of a different path. Unless he had joined the Faceless men and the First Sword position had served its purpose as a cover story. The Faceless men recruit from all walks of life. We know this. We've seen it. They value skill, but more than that, they value the ability to become someone else entirely. What better recruit than a man who was already famous throughout Braavos? A man whose face everyone knew. A man who could fake his own death and take on a new identity without anyone questioning it.
What are you doing here?
Waiting for you.
How do you know we'd come this way?
Let's break down the evidence more carefully. When Jaqen first meets Arya properly, he already seems to know her. Not just know of her, but know her personally. He understands her personality, her strengths, her weaknesses. He knows exactly how to manipulate her into doing what he wants. Some fans argue this is just because he observed her on the road to Harrenhal. But watch those early interactions again. There's a familiarity there that goes beyond simple observation. He knows which buttons to push because he's already spent time with her. He's already taught her. In Season 2, when Arya saves Jaqen and 2 other prisoners from burning to death in their cage, Jaqen tells her that she stole 3 deaths from the men-faced god. He owes the Red God 3 deaths, and Arya can choose the names. But here's the question no one asks. How did Jaqen know that saving those 3 men offended the men-faced god? How did he know the exact theological implications of what Arya did? Because he's intimately familiar with the religion. Because he serves that god. And if he serves the men-faced god, then everything Syrio taught Arya about death suddenly makes perfect sense. The phrase "not today" isn't just catchy. It's a mantra. It's the opposite of what the Faceless men believe, which makes it the perfect test. Syrio was teaching Arya to fight death, to resist it, because he needed to know if she had the strength to eventually become its servant. You can't serve death if you're afraid of it. You can't become a faceless man if you don't first understand what you're giving up. Syrio was teaching Arya to value life so that when she eventually gave it up to become no one, the sacrifice would mean something. Now let's address the obvious counter-argument. Syrio and Jaqen don't look alike. They have different faces, different accents, different mannerisms. But that's exactly the point. The Faceless men can change their faces. We see Jaqen do this at the end of Season 2 when he transforms right in front of Arya. We see the Hall of Faces in Braavos filled with thousands of faces that the Faceless men can wear. If Jaqen can look like anyone, then he certainly could have looked like Syrio Forel. The wooden sword instructor from Braavos could have been just another face in the collection. But there's more. In the books, when Arya is training with the Faceless men in Braavos, she's beaten by the kindly man with a stick whenever she lies or fails at her tasks. The weapon of choice is a stick. Not a whip. Not a rod. A stick. Just like Syrio trained her with a wooden sword. The training methods mirror each other perfectly. The kindly man is teaching her the same lessons Syrio taught, using the same physical punishment, pushing her to become someone new by breaking down who she was. This can't be a coincidence. George R.R. Martin doesn't do coincidences. Here's what likely happened. The Faceless men had been watching the Stark family for some time. Whether they were hired to do so or whether they had their own reasons doesn't matter. What matters is that someone with Faceless men training got hired as Arya's sword instructor. That person wore the face of Syrio Forel, a real person who may or may not have been First Sword of Braavos. When the Lannisters came for Arya, Syrio held them off not to sacrifice himself, but to create a situation where he could fake his death and move to the next phase of the plan. He allowed himself to be captured and thrown in the black cells under a different face, Jaqen H'ghar. Why go through all this trouble? Because Arya Stark was special. The Faceless men saw something in her that made her worth cultivating. Maybe it was a specific mission. Maybe it was her potential. Maybe it was both. But they wanted her in Braavos eventually. They wanted her to become one of them. And the best way to do that was to plant the seeds early, let them grow, and guide her to the House of Black and White when she was ready. Everything Jaqen does in Season 2 supports this theory. He helps Arya escape Harrenhal, but only after she's learned certain lessons. He gives her the iron coin and tells her the words to say, Valar Morghulis. All men must die. He points her toward Braavos without forcing her. He lets her make the choice herself, which is exactly how the Faceless men operate. They don't conscript. They don't kidnap. They wait for people to come to them. But they absolutely stack the deck to make sure the right people end up making that choice. In Season 6, when Arya is stabbed by the waif and nearly dies, she survives using everything Syrio taught her. She fights in the dark using her other senses. She moves like a water dancer even when injured. She refuses to give up. And when she finally defeats the waif and leaves the Faceless men, she does so as someone who learned from both Syrio and Jaqen, because they were the same person teaching her the same lessons in different ways. The show never confirms this theory outright because mystery is more powerful than confirmation. But the clues are everywhere. From the matching fighting styles to the philosophical teachings, from the convenient timeline to the suspicious lack of a body, everything points to Syrio Forel being a faceless man operating under deep cover. And if he was a faceless man, then Jaqen H'ghar is the most likely candidate for who he became after staging his own death. George R.R. Martin has said in interviews that he loves subverting fantasy tropes. The noble sacrifice that turns out to be a clever escape. The dead character who was never really dead. The mysterious stranger, who was someone we knew all along. This is exactly the kind of twist he builds his stories around. And for fans who pay attention to the details, who reread the books and rewatch the scenes, the evidence has been there since Season 1. Syrio Forel taught Arya that we say not today to the god of death. But he was always a servant of that god. He was always preparing her to serve that god too. And when his work as Syrio was done, he simply changed his face, changed his name, and continued the mission as Jaqen H'ghar. The First Sword of Braavos never died. He just became someone else. If this theory blew your mind, hit that subscribe button because we're just getting started with Game of Thrones secrets that change everything you thought you knew. Drop a comment telling me whether you think Syrio is alive or if I'm reaching. And if you want more deep dives into the hidden connections everyone else misses, check out the next video where we break down why Varys might have been working for the Faceless men this entire time. Thanks for watching, and remember, a girl has no name, but a sword master has many faces.